we are about to launch into some storytelling and whatever comes to mind here. But I wanted to say something I was thinking about today about these stories. And what I've thought for many years is that we have a treasure that Baba gives us. We actually, and I have this song called "The Lion's Share," in which I take from an anecdote from The Silent Word by Francis Brabazon. Uh, Baba is being attributed to saying that we should come and loot the treasure, and so get the lion's share of the treasure. And so he's urging us on. And one of the ways of doing that, to me, is remembering Baba. Because how many times have we read uh, messages and within conversations that Baba had with people that he asked people to remember him. Now, I was thinking, remember him. What does that mean? That could mean different things. But one of the things it could be, one of the meanings that could come from remembering Baba is remembering him in our lives or in somebody else's story of their life and their experience with Baba. So, in our memories and in our remembrance, and thus sharing these anecdotes and stories. So, this is our treasure chest we open up here and share. The other thing about sharing that I've heard before uh, is that when we share Baba's love, we it grows. It gets more rather than less, and so that's always wonderful there too. So I'm going to ask Shaw, who's prepared to give us. Shaw, is this your coming to Baba story or some other story?
No, no, it's not my coming to Baba story.
Okay,
It's basically something very special that started way back in 1971.
great.
And I, in 1971, when I came onto the center, it was my first time on the center. I was living in Boston. I was still in high school. I was in my last year of high school. And I came to the center in the fall. Um, it must have been just before school started. And I was walking on the beach with Debbie, who eventually married Jim Meyer and then got divorced and married somebody else and all that. And I heard her recently, and she's gotten older, and I'm not even sure how much of this she would remember. And her husband now had to kind of really be somewhat of a caregiver to her. And so, anyways, but at that time, to me, she was beautiful and very attractive and a year older than me. And I was trying to impress her. And we walked back from the beach, and we were walking up the road that goes by Del Ruba, and we hadn't reached Del Ruba, but I want to say within like uh, maybe 1,000 feet of the gateway to Del Ruba, um, we noticed these two giant water moccasin snakes, and they were a pair, and they were like easily 6 feet long. And water moccasins are full of muscle, and they literally were as thick. Each one was literally as thick as a motorcycle tire. And I remembered how Baba had said when a soul that is in the form of a snake is ready to move on to a higher form, it will actually lie there and let a human kill it. And when a human kills it, it 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 is able to the soul is able to get out of that snake form and move on to a higher form. And apparently, snakes, when you're in that form, it's hard to pass to the next higher form. But a human killing it does the trick. And these two snakes were literally lying there waiting to be killed. And I had no tools, and I had never tried to kill something that size. But, Debbie was just as convicted as I was that we were meant to kill them. And I even tried to run over them with my Volkswagen Beetle, but it did nothing. They were that strong, and they didn't wander off or run off or slither off or whatever. And then I found a rock like the size of a softball, but I was afraid of how close I could get to them, and it was just not working. So Debbie said, "Let's go up to Delruba and ask Kitty what she thinks we should do." And we went up there, and Kitty was 80 years old, and just her resolute, intuitive self. And she just immediately picked up on the energetics of the situation and took us right to the garage and pointed to a shovel, calling it a spade, which confused me. But, I realized, okay, she said, "Can you use this?" And I was like, "Yes." But I was really a little bit intimidated by these snakes, but I was trying to impress Debbie. So, you know, and of course, Kitty's 80 years old, and she has no hesitation about this is the thing to do. And they weren't even on the center, they were just off the center. But there was something else going on. And we went back there, and the snakes were gone. And so, I didn't have to rise to the occasion and all that. But 20 years later, I um, went to the center. That was in 1971. And 20 years later, in 1991, I went to the center. And when I came onto the center that time, it was where the old gateway was. And I looked up into the tall pines that were next to the gateway. Something drew me to look up into them, and the greener of these pines is held high up. I don't know if they drop their lower branches or what they do, but I looked up into that greenery, and I had a vision. I could see I could see a message in the life energy of that greenery, and the message was of secrecy and fear. And I was like, what is this? I've never felt secrecy and fear on the center. And I had actually just inherited over $1 million, and I I was like, in that moment I was like, my family's fine. Um, I'm going to dedicate myself right now to finding out where this secrecy and fear is coming from and do something about it before I leave the center. So I think I was like, I want to say 37 or 38. And within 4 days, I knew um, where this issue was coming from. And it was something personal. I just, in a completely innocent way, um, was within earshot of witnessing, hearing something personal. And what I was just sitting on a bench waiting for someone, and I heard nothing but beauty. And then, unfortunately, um, it there was an awareness, because I don't want to be too revealing. Anyways, there was an awareness, and um, I don't know how to say this. Anyways, these people knew that I was outside, and all of a sudden fear came into the picture. And then over so many days, something else happened where I witnessed something else that was personal in a completely different part of the center with a completely different group of people. And again, it was nothing but beauty, and I quickly removed myself from that situation. I had walked in on something early in the morning, and it was like um, these two incidents were connected in one way or another with different people that were important to the center. And there was this crazy situation where um, I knew that somehow I was being used by God. And during that time, um, I I went to Del Ruba with the mail with somebody whose sister had actually dated my father. And I was reading Rumi or Hafiz as I was going with the car that was with the mail. And I was just so high on divine love. And we pull into the parking lot, and there's Kitty, 99 years old, in a wheelchair. And I talked to Jeff Wolverton. He hadn't even seen her for months. I was probably one of the few people that had actually seen her. And I knew this might be the last time I see her. And I asked, can I, and also I was delivering a plant, which Jane knew about, and she had told me she wanted to go and deliver this plant that had been given by love by a woman from up north who I had been going to for spiritual reasons because she had a great deal of insight and vision. And I was taking on some incredibly heavy stuff with three different individuals that was world scale heavy stuff. And one of them was my father. And one of them was another man who I had entered my first business dealing with, and it had turned into a really bad situation. Anyways, and then one was someone else. And it was just all these things were like happening at once. And when I saw Kitty, I asked the nurses, could I walk back to the center from here rather than going back in the car? And as I passed Kitty, um, I, with my wrist, I just brushed, tried to brush her forearm that was on the arm of the wheelchair that she was sitting in. And the nurse that was there, the other young nurse, had taken the plant inside that was for Kitty that had been given by this woman that I had been seeing, who actually was an excellent remote viewer. And how I had tested her if I was going to actually use her to help guide me spiritually, was I told her about Kitty. And right away, her intuition was so strong, her inner connection was so strong. Right away, she picked up on Kitty's energy, and she started to follow her. And she would tell me, oh, Kitty's going to the hospital now. Oh, Kitty's back from the hospital. When I came down to the center that time, this woman knew more about the actions of Kitty than probably any one person, because she could see her coming and going everywhere. And she had given this plant, which was an Easter lily that carried energy. And Jane picked up on the specialness of this plant, but she just kept me hanging for days. And the plant was actually a little bit gone by. And so at one point I just got anxious, and I went with the mail lady to deliver this plant. Well, anyways, the young nurse had gone inside to put the plant in Kitty's room. And when I reached to just graze um, Kitty's arm in passing as a way to say goodbye, this nurse literally yelled to the level of a scream. It was completely inappropriate and shocking. And I just quickly diffused the situation by going to the far side of the Del Ruba parking lot beyond the chain that led to the path back to the center. And then I turned and I faced Kitty, and Kitty came to in the moment, and she was having the same feeling that I was. She was in shock, and all she could do was clear her throat in the cadence of Avatar Mir Baba Ki Jai. And I had actually been involved with Christian groups, and I just felt like returning praise God, 3 times. And actually, as I remember it, Kitty didn't say Jai Baba all the time. But anyways, that began a higher connection with Kitty. And to the point where one time I was up early and I was outside the original kitchen, and I was looking at the sky beyond the lake over the ocean, and I saw flashes of light, colored light, multicolored light. And intuitively, I knew I was seeing the energetics of the war that was happening in Iraq. And years later, Wendy said at a Southeast gathering, I think, how she knew at the time that Baba was working through Kitty, who was still in the world, for this war. And I actually experienced it. So I was experiencing things on this level. And I believe at that time, Baba was using me to help 2 people work through sanskaras that they were destined to work through in this life. And things got interesting. Another time I could go into that, but suffice it to say, for the last 34 years, I've been working with how to help with this sanskaric work. And it's been misunderstood by 5 leaderships, and I don't blame anybody, but it's meant that I was marginalized, I was suppressed, I was misunderstood. And the other day I heard something about excelling. So it's one thing to be a genius, it's one thing to have talent, but really what really counts is persistence. So this work, I feel, goes back 54 years. And I have a feeling that I led the first all-black regiment against the South, and 1/4 of us died in Charleston, South Carolina, trying to take a fort at night on foot. And it was a charge to certain death of 600 men, but we made that charge because we so believed in showing the world what people united in love in one cause can do. And I kind of feel that this situation that I was blessed to take on at the center and helping these people through these sanskars in this time was, as my former wife said to me today, you threw yourself under the bus when you took on this work. And I said, I know, but I said, I think I've done it before. And, death is not permanent and you get through it and it's all good. I've had a lot of experiences since 1991. Some like incredibly fantastic things. Like one time I helped this girl who was possessed by three spirits that were so powerful. I was like, no, I can't help with this. But because I had spent time in the Christian world when I was ostracized by the Baba community and misunderstood from this work that I've referred to, I just started to go out into other communities. Well, that's okay, Mayor Baba said he was Jesus, said he was this one, said he was that one. So I'll just go out into these other communities and experience Mayor Baba in this form. And I did, Um, and I learned about possession in the Christian tradition, and I learned. I saw some exorcism, and then one time I just, never really been trained in it, but I just kind of put it together and followed my instincts, and it worked. I helped this woman who had this spirit in her for 17 years. But years later, I helped this girl, Gloria, who had three spirits in her. And for 2 weeks, I was like, no, I can't do this. And then finally, I was like, no, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of her talking to these spirits and this stuff. I'm going to try and do something. And that morning, while she was sleeping at 4 o'clock in the morning, I talked to these three spirits just like I'm talking now. And I said to them, I know how to do this. You're very powerful. I'm new at this. And I'm going to do this because I've got the conviction that I should do this, but I'm going to call on help. And I did call on help. And the idea that I explained to them was if I call on help, it's going to happen fast and you're going to suffer as little as possible. And that morning at 8:30 in the morning, a mushroom cloud appeared off in the distance, and I saw three sky scale diagonal gray lines pass one at a time into that mushroom cloud and dissipate. And a month or so later, this girl called me and said my life has completely changed. And anyways, I got a lot of stories, but basically, um, the message that I've been trying to get to the daughter of this woman that I was initially trying to help um, is that this is real. This is something that I've dedicated, much of my adult life, worked on much of my adult life to actually pull this off. And it's really just helping these two people face something in themselves that they needed to face, and so they could move to the next level. And what I've learned from this is that we're all imperfect, except for like the 56 souls that are perfect on Earth. Maybe there's a few more, but anyways, so we're all on this journey of growth, and it's all the sanskaric stuff. And I think it's about time that our community really starts to uh, take some of these things that we've been shown by the Avatar more seriously and stop being so critical of each other and accept the fact that most of us are not perfect. It's natural that we have weaknesses and strengths. It's natural that we have things to work through in this life. And part of the joy is to help other people do it if you can. And that's really all there is. And you it has to be real. So unfortunately, you do have to get really authentic. Um, and there may be some things that, a lot of people could point fingers at. Um, and but that's not the point. We're supposed to be we know that in each person there's a piece of God, and um, we know it's just a matter of time before that part of ourselves comes more and more into the picture. And in this particular time, there's all this fear and secrecy, the same thing that I felt when I first came onto the center in 1991. And that what Baba shows is that it's about love and it's about openness. And unfortunately, I think these five series of leaderships have been somewhat tainted because um, somehow this work kind of went wrong, and it's actually increased a certain amount of fear and a certain amount of secrecy. So here I've been trying to like open up the situation in a good way, in a loving way, and I'm just hoping the last person that I've been trying to help, finally has gotten this message. And I think she has. I heard her speaking the other night, through a recording, and I heard in her voice confidence, and I heard in her voice authenticity, and I felt like, yes, this thing that she had to work through, it's happened. So now, the problem is everybody that's been trying to protect this person and keep me from doing my work and not understanding it. And it's really not my work, it's Baba's work.
Hey,
And
Shaw.
yeah,
Shaw. Yeah. Uh, this is really not exactly the place for going into all these various things. I mean, I know you have something to say, but it's just out of place to be
Ron, can I
laying
say
this.
something? Can I say something? Because last night on RT, at the time when, people get to talk after 10, there was a misunderstanding. And um, Ron, it's been 34 years. It's time to talk about this. And the world right now, as I said, is suffering from fear and secrecy. And I'll tell you one
But
thing. I'll tell you,
this is not the place. It may be the time, but it it's not the place. So that's what I
okay,
was saying. I
okay.
didn't say it wasn't
Well,
the time. Although
I
you
just,
said you had a 10-minute story,
yeah,
and
okay,
I had a very difficult time following. Although I hear a lot of the
okay,
things you're saying. I
yeah,
like I like what you're saying, but
yeah.
it's just not fitting into the
Ron,
format.
this is your effort. So I'm going to trust your input, and I'm just gonna leave it there. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
unless you have anything um, further. But uh, basically, I will probably continue this with um, at the seven o'clock um, Sahavas for everyone. And there we're dealing with somebody who's kind of got some professional um, background in interpersonal stuff and getting people to communicate and talk and work through things. But there's no perfect way to do this. I'm speaking from the heart. I'm speaking the truth. And what can
I
I
understand
say?
that. I understand that. It was
And
just
it's
not
my
the
story.
format, not
And
the
it's
thing
my
that is being
story.
set
And
up
it's
here.
my story. And it's my
Yeah.
story.
Well,
you know.
it's your life story. I'm talking about some stories having to do with Baba being the master, our master, you
Yeah.
know, and how he works in our lives. Uh, that may have been in there, you know, here and there, but it was more about
Yeah.
Shaw than it was
Well,
about Baba's working in our lives. So let's just leave it at that.
well,
And
just to qualify one thing, um, you can't stick with it for 34 years unless you're guided by Baba. You don't have visions when you first come onto the center. You don't have those experiences with seeing those snakes. You don't have those experiences with Kitty if Baba isn't strongly in it. And you don't have the feeling that you're meant to be here today saying this if Baba isn't strongly in it. I mean, just last night at the Arti, um, um, Orang, the first thing he quoted was Baba saying to people, basically, go for it. Like, put your total self into it. If you're trying to be an actor, think you're the best actor in the world. Okay? So I'm doing that right now. I'm totally putting myself into it. It's not it's not really about me as much as you think. It's really about everybody, and it's about how I try to be walking in my higher self as much as possible. So whatever. J Baba.
Jay
Under
Baba.
some very difficult circumstances that still continue to be difficult, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I I will say one thing in closing. Your last guest last week talked about some kind of schism in the Baba community. Well, I'm watching the recordings and stuff, so I'm not talking to anybody who's, having experiences in the Baba community. But this let me know that, yeah, there is something that needs to be addressed. And what I'm trying to say is that this is this I think it does have to do with this issue of openness, and if I don't know anything that's more Baba than that, so whatever.
Yeah, I understand what you are wanting to do. You want to do something, and you've come to this platform to do it. All I'm saying is this is not what the platform has been set up for, so it's out of place. It may be very worthwhile when it's
And that's
in the
more
right place.
important in this time.
Yeah. So anyhow, it's
Yeah.
not uncommon
Anyhow,
that
well,
these things wouldn't occur.
then I'll just
Mhm.
Ron, you said you had some
okay.
stories.
All right. So
Okay. All right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could tell a couple of stories.
What-
One came to mind when Shaw was saying about how he saw colors in the sky at the center. Because one time I was on the center, I don't remember what year it was, but we were sitting in the original kitchen, and somebody comes in and says, "You got to come out and see the rainbow." And so I don't know, there may be 5 or 6 people, maybe 10 or 12 people actually. Uh, I can't remember for sure, but we stood around the boathouse, and from one side where Baba's house is, all the way across to where would be, I guess, the ocean or Gator Lake or something. It was like a big rainbow, and then it was a double rainbow. I mean, everybody goes, "Oh wow, look, it's a double rainbow!" and then it might have even become a triple rainbow. I may be confusing that with something else, but it was a glorious double rainbow, and we were all having fun with it, thinking that Baba has painted this wonderful picture for us to enjoy in this wonderful surrounding and companionship with each other. So we were laughing and having fun looking at it. And then what happened was a bird, like a white bird, flew under the, looked like it was flying under the rainbow. And we went, oh my God, look at that bird. And then and when it hit a certain spot, it lit up like it was like silver. And then we all gasped and we all had fun with that. Then we were just standing there and said, I wonder if this is the whole show. And then 7 birds flew through flew the same way under that rainbow. And it was just sort of otherworldly, and but in a way the most natural thing. But under Baba's auspices, it was so beautiful to
Were
see.
they all white? All white birds like the
Yeah,
first?
they were white birds. I guess, I don't know. Maybe they were seagulls. I'm not sure what kind of birds they were, but we saw one, and then when the 7 comes through, it was it kept on ramping up, to a higher degree of beauty and significance in a way. So I don't know. That's just a nice experience that Baba can give us sometimes when he's in the mood. Yeah.
I had a nice experience with an animal. It was after LA Sahabas. All the family was going, you're all jolly and happy and coming home from Sahabas. And we stopped at a place called Casa de Fruta down near San Jose, a place to eat. And they had a little kind of a petting zoo in a yard. Yard could go, you could go outside and walk around. So, and there was a little pond. So I went out there. I was on my own. I went out there to the pond and started walking around, and I noticed a great big bullfrog, a really big frog. Maybe I've told you this story, Ron. It's
Mhm.
he was sitting on a rock. He was just sitting on a rock, and so I came a little closer. I expected him to hop off and go, but he didn't. He just stayed there
Was it in the pond or next to the pond?
on a rock. He was sitting outside the pond on a rock.
Okay.
So I got a little closer, fully expecting him to jump away, but no, he stayed. And I get a little closer. And then I noticed that there was something funny about his mouth. I got a little closer and he still didn't move. And what had happened is he had swallowed a fish. He had swallowed a fish such the tail first, so that out of his mouth was protruding a little bit of the fish's mouth. The fish was dead, but it was in his mouth. and and I came a little closer. He was waiting for me to pull to help him because he was gonna die. So I just came. I started saying, "Jai Baba, Jai Baba." Got a little closer, and I got close enough that I could grab that fish, lift him up, and I had to shake him really hard. It was stuck in there. I had to shake him,
Oh
and
my God.
finally dropped away, and off he went.
Oh my gosh. What a thing.
I know.
Wow. Big bullfrog.
Yeah, yeah, it was wonderful. He just was waiting. He knew he needed help.
He needed help. Wow. I may have heard you tell that before.
Told it many times. It's one of
Yeah,
my,
yeah. That sounds familiar. The mouth inside the mouth.
yeah.
Yeah, there's another story also, this one I heard of. I think, I don't know if Darwin told this story or somebody heard it from Darwin. Maybe that was it. It's like third hand or something like that. But and you may have heard this story. But when Darwin and the crew were helping to prepare the center, and do all the making the paths and putting up the cabins and doing the whole, getting it all ready for Baba to come. Uh, there was this one local guy who was working there who loved fishing. And he was standing on the footbridge looking down, and he could see some fish swimming around in there. And he thought, oh man, I'd love to be able to fish in this lake. But of course, they had told him you can't fish here. It's not allowed. And he was just bemoaning his plight because he would have loved to have gotten one of those fish and had it for dinner that night. He's just really aching with that desire to have one of those fish. And so he had he had taken his hat off and just put it down on the bridge, and it was just sitting on the bridge next to him when a bird flew by that had a fish in its talons, and it wriggled in such a way that it got loose from the fish's grasp and fell into the guy's hat.
No.
Now that's how the master works. If you really, really, really want something, and he knows when people really, really wholeheartedly, honestly, and innocently want something. He usually can provide it, but my God, look how he does it. It's quite something.
Oh.
Well, I brought something to read that people can read it themselves, but just for the heck of it, let me read this story that a lot of people know, and I think it's one of Bao's best stories. And he writes about it in While the World Slept. So he writes that at the beginning of October 1957, Baba went to Bombay for treatment of his injured hip. That's from the 56 accident. The women Mandali stayed with him at Ashiana, and the men Mandali who accompanied him stayed in other accommodations a mile and a half away. Before leaving in Merazad, Baba told me, this is Bao talking, Baba said, "We are going to Bombay, and at Arnavas's, the best type of food will be available. So eat well and improve your health." Apparently, Bao did some wild stuff after Baba's accident, which kind of put him in a bad way of health. So he wanted him to restore his health. So he said, "Eat well." Although I was only eating once a day in the afternoon due to my duties, I nodded in agreement, and Baba repeated, "Very good food will be served. Eat heartily." We arrived in Bombay in the evening, and that night, Baba again brought up the same subject. "The food here will be excellent," he gestured. "So don't eat anything outside." We had no money and with us, so I wondered how I would be able to eat elsewhere. Baba continued, "Take only a cup of tea in the morning and then come to Ashiana for lunch. Otherwise, how will you be able to eat what is served here? Despite whatever I may tell you, eat your meals to the fullest." The next day, when we were all seated for lunch, Baba sat next to me and said, "You are eating so much?" I thought Baba was joking and smiled. He said, "Baba, your plate is overflowing. Are you a giant? If you eat like this, what will be left for the others?" Addressing the others, Baba commented, "Look how much Bao is eating. Does he have any shame? What kind of manners does he have?" And Baba went on belittling me until lunch was over. Every day, Baba would sit with us at lunch and make comments about how much I was eating. I felt so badly about it that I began taking only one slice of bread and a glass of water. But Baba would say, "This man has no manners. Look, see how much he sits there and chewing bread and sipping water. Who brought him up?" I don't know how Baba got away with this. He must have been the best actor ever. 20 days passed like this, and Baba did not let up on me for a single day. Late at night, when I returned to where I was staying, I would see laborers sleeping soundly on the pavement. I would think their life was better than mine. They sleep well at night, and in the morning they enjoy a hearty breakfast, while I have only one cup of tea. Just see my life. The next day, after Baba's running dialogue at lunchtime about my large appetite, I got so upset that I left the table. Baba got up and brought a papaya to me. Eat it, he gestured. I don't want it, I replied. Why not? He asked. Baba, I implored, just give me 8 annas a day and I will make my own arrangements outside for food. 8 annas? What will you eat for 8 annas? He asked. Never mind what I will eat, I said, but I will be very, very happy if you'll just give me that much. I don't want this food. I will eat outside. For the past 3 weeks, I have been living on one piece of bread, and still you don't let me go. Uh, you don't let go of me and keep saying that I eat like a giant. Baba then gestured. What instructions had I given to you at Merazad? Do you remember? I don't remember, I said, still upset. Did I ask you to eat well? He replied. Repeatedly, I told you to eat well. And the very first day here, I said, whatever I may say, you should have your fill. Isn't that so? But you disobeyed me. You broke my order. And every day, when you were breaking my order by not eating, you were breaking my heart. How hurt I felt when you would not eat well. I realized that Baba was right. So I started eating regularly. However, the story doesn't end there. 6 months later, when we were staying at Ganeshkine Gardens in Pune, some devotees from Bombay and Pune were called. At lunch, all sat down to eat, and Baba took a chair opposite me. He asked me, you are eating so much? How is it that you eat like a giant? I just looked at him and continued my lunch. Baba commented to the others, see how shameless this fellow is? He is one of my mandali, and I am telling him he takes too much, yet he goes on stuffing his mouth. All glared at me. But I went on eating. Baba said, just see this man. Does he have any shame? And on it went. Will you ever behave like this? Will you all ever behave like this? Baba asked the others, and they all shook their heads solemnly and said no. Baba left after the meal was over, and the guests asked me, don't you have any care for Baba's wish? I was very hungry, I answered, but it was Baba's wish that I shouldn't eat, they argued. Would it have killed you to miss one meal? When can when you cannot do such a small thing, how can you serve Baba properly? Laughing, I replied, I serve only my stomach, and despite how it appears, it's not against Baba's wish. In the evening, when I went to Baba, he embraced me with so much love and gestured, today you made me very happy. I'm very pleased with you. You obeyed me 100% in spite of being humiliated.
That's great.
That is a show.
Imagine, right? I have something. Um, let's see. Sorry. Um, I Miran Mehta, spoke this weekend. Did you
Yeah,
hear?
I heard most of it. I think I missed the last 10 minutes or something.
Well, he said he had written a couple of articles and he sent me them. And I really like this one on Baba lovers. We have, it might take 20 minutes. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, whatever you think
Well, I
at
can
this point. I mean,
go on.
what's the gist of it or the theme of it?
It's that we discriminate by calling people Baba lovers or not Baba lovers. Well, I'll read you one paragraph. I'll read you the first paragraph. How's that?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that because
All right.
I mean, if it's commentary about things and, uh, opinions and things of that sort, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for this.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, just to introduce the idea,
All
and then
right.
we can go look at it uh,
Okay.
on our own, right?
It's actually on the website, jbaba.com. Uh,
Okay.
it's been edited. I don't know. I like his original. Here, okay, I'll read his paragraph.
All right.
Baba Letters by Merwan Mehta. I met a couple some time back in a Baba gathering. The husband was an ardent Baba disciple or Baba lover. The wife was taking her time to get into the ranks of Baba lovers, but her perceived time to have attained that status in the minds of the other Baba lovers was long past. Um, she was true to her feelings and would not put on an act that finally she was drawn to Baba when she was not. I am guessing the way people introduced the couple was by saying, here is so and so and his wife, who's not a Baba lover. With such an impression, it's not difficult to imagine well meaning people from the local Baba groups asking a question like, have you become a Baba lover yet? As you can imagine, this can irritate anyone into becoming even more resistant to accept Baba. So that's the first paragraph.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
So it goes on like that.
Yeah. Well, that is
Yeah.
a good theme to write about. It sounds like it's instructive.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because we so often, I mean, I know I've done things and then people have either brought it to my attention or it all of a sudden dawned on me. Baba brought it to my attention in some manner. And I realized, oh my gosh, how did I come up with that comment or whatever I may have said or done that was really well, that reminds me of something uh as far as how Baba has um worked. And this is one of my early stories when I first moved to the Bay Area. I was going to meetings at Mariston in Berkeley.
Oh, wow.
And so I was headed to this meeting. Now, in this neighborhood, where we had this kind of a basement apartment, which we used uh, as a center for Baba and have I think we had Monday weekly meetings there. Um, we there was the neighborhood had a lot of dogs, and in those days, two things were quite different than they are these days, which is dogs ran free. They weren't on leashes. I mean, you hardly ever saw a dog on a leash, and you never saw anybody walking around with plastic bags picking up after their dog. That was unheard of. That's modern. Anyhow, in those days, so there was dog poop everywhere in that neighborhood. I lived in that neighborhood for about a month or two, uh, and I can attest that it was all over the place. So this one day night, I was walking to the Baba meeting, and I saw this fellow out on the sidewalk. I saw who it was. I recognized him, even though I was pretty far away from him, down the block from him. I saw him doing what looked like he was scraping his sole of his shoe on the pavement or on the grass or something. And I realized, or I deduced, that he had stepped in one of those piles that were, strewn everywhere. So I made a comment of some sort. Uh, I can't remember what I said, but it was making light of his predicament. I was joking. I'm making a joke, but uh, well, it was a joke. And again, I think making light of his predicament says it. It just what I was doing. But I didn't think of it in like that. I was just being clever, you know. And anyhow, that he didn't say anything. I didn't say anything after that. We had the meeting. So the next night, 24 hours later, I was in my apartment in Oakland, and I was awaiting a gathering of musicians, Baba Lever musicians that were coming coming to my apartment to work on some songs that I had composed. And this was incredibly exciting for me to have these people interested in working on these songs. I mean, these people I felt were very talented musicians. So there were the Baba lovers, but there was this one other person was who lived in my apartment building, who I'd gotten to know, and he was an amazing violin player. I mean, and he enjoyed the songs that I was playing, and he would play along, and so I had invited him as well. So we were sitting in the living room area, and we were just waiting for the violin player to come. So I heard a knock on the door. I went to the door. It's the violin player. And we walked back to where the other, I don't know, three, maybe two, three, four other people were sitting on the couches and chairs around a coffee table. So this guy sits down. I start uh, letting these people know who he is. Um, and so it didn't take very long for somebody to say, "What is that smell? What is that?" And of course, we hadn't smelled it before he came in. So he had brought it, whatever it was. And so he looked on the bottom of his shoe. And if a shoe could collect more dog poop on it, I don't know. I don't think it could. But the other thing is, it tracked it all the way through from the door to this area where he was sitting. So it was like strewn all through the house. There was no way that it was so smelly that nobody could handle it. So they all got up and left, leaving me leaving me the chore of cleaning it. I had to clean it because it was so bad. So I figured out how to, what I was going to do to clean it off. It's all on the rug. It was just, basically on the rug. Um, and what happened was Baba's grace descended upon me and made me realize that 24 hours prior, I was making light of somebody's dog shit problem. And here I was now with my own 24 hours later. And I felt like this was Baba's way of saying, don't make light of other people's suffering, no matter how clever you think you are. And of course, it was so clear. And I, and then, but it was beyond that, because what I realized was that this meant that Baba was paying such strict attention to me, that he was always watching me and ready to help me to learn how to be in the world in a way that would please him, not that would please my ego and show everybody how clever I was, but rather, be, well, not do that anyhow. At least not do that. And so I was so touched. I guess I was weeping, and thinking how amazing it is to have Baba be that close to me, that he would notice everything and work out everything in order to give me the lessons that I needed. And so I came up with a name for it, which was Baba's 24-hour service. And from that point, it came about. Every time, well, I don't know if it was every time, but it was only the times that I recognized it. Baba would do the same thing. Whenever I would express my ego, my pettiness or cleverness or whatever it was that was enhancing my ego, within 24 hours, sometimes quite a bit quicker, something would occur that would it would be from him saying that, it would be a stinging situation that would make me realize that that thing I had just done within 24 hours ago, so I couldn't really forget it. He would put it together and say, you blew it that time, Ron, and you could do better. You could do better. And so that went on for many years. And it it was just this thing with Baba that I had. His 24-hour service was in a way glorious because sure, I wanted to be a better person for Baba. I wanted to be the person he wanted me to be and not be the person that would be the opposite. Anyhow, that was one of the probably the most power one of the most powerful lessons, and it was filled with lessons in the experiences of all those. I remember there's one other one. I don't remember any of the other ones except for this one, which happened years later, quite a few years later. Um, it was still happening. The 24-hour service was still going on. But this one morning, I got pretty ambitious and started doing things that were seemingly my responsibility to do, but I was doing it and I was really getting filled with this sense of, wow, I'm really being responsible today. I'm really taking care of things. And, I was starting to just get filled with this pride. Just with for myself, nobody else was involved in this. That I was like bragging or anything like that. I was just doing it to myself. So at one point, I drove to a shopping center to buy something, and when I was done, I got back into my car and I was ready to pull out of the parking spot, and there was a woman who had a child in the back seat, and she was getting ready to take the child out of the back seat or put her into the seat. I can't remember one of those, but I thought that I could pull out without interfering with that. But but it was kind of iffy, I mean, I wasn't being very patient and just waiting for her to finish her chore of getting the kid in there. And she laid into me, letting me know, what the hell are you doing, man? You're jeopardizing the safety of me and my child. That's so irresponsible. And I thought, oh, Baba, you've done it again. This was like an hour later, you got me being an idiot, uh, an impatient idiot, just what he doesn't want me to be. So I think we've done our task for today. What do you think?
Good. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I hope we didn't miss too many people and hope they've
Yeah.
come and see us online.
Maybe I'll send something out on Facebook or something and
Ah,
apologize for being late and just remind people that this thing exists somehow.
so yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Stories. I think that word is key. Stories. Bring stories. To me, it's simple. How a master works, I wasn't quite sure had to read further to find out what you meant. It's just my
Yeah.
suggestion.
All right. Well, thanks for attending.
All right.
All right. Well, J
Day,
Bob at all.
Chip
Baba.
on them.
Okay. Here we go.
Bye.
Day Baba.